All right, it is February the 6th, 2023, and I am doing a new thing this morning that I haven't done. Actually, we did it one time, but we didn't put it on. And we're having a discussion. All right, this is Lucky, this is John, this is me, this is Bessie, and this is Bob. Okay? And everybody sitting here, I will tell you, is a believer in Yeshua Jesus. We have all that in common. And the discussion today is a rather obscure but important discussion. And that is, can we know that we are saved? Or is our salvation based on faith? And do they mean the same thing? And is it important to know the distinction between knowing and believing, which is also faith? Okay, so I'm going to open it with John, and then I'm just going to we'll just see what happens. Anybody come in anywhere you want on that. Okay, John.
Well, I guess the debate is there's two different schools of thought. Either once you're saved, you're always saved and can't lose your salvation. And then there's a completely other school of thought that is basically you have to ask for forgiveness for your individual sins. I think is how that goes. And if you commit a sin and don't ask for forgiveness for it, and then you die, then you haven't been forgiven for that sin.
And also the unpardonable sin. A question about the so-called unpardonable sin is what prompted me to get this discussion going. And I think everybody's heard of the unpardonable sin. Do we know? You'll see how it's linked with the unpardonable sin, I think. And I'm also doubting that we're going to get to a solution here. And that's okay too, because I believe everything is as it should be. Do we know for a 100% certainty? That's a mathematical thing, 100.00, that we are saved, or do we not, and we have to believe by faith, which I'm going to define as not knowing for 100%, but believing. Go, Bessie.
Your prompting questions kind of guide my responses.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've agreed.
Say something else if you want to. You don't have to.
I like the way that John put it. Though the way that I've always heard about it was that there was the elect kind of train of thought, that only certain people were selected, only those would be wakened from their sins, and then there's the other train of thought that you come to him in your misery and you ask him to help you and stuff. I like the way that John put it, and that's definitely, I mean, who could die without sin? It would take a person really seeing it coming, to be like, and then please forgive me, and croak, all at the right time. So I don't know what the answer to that is.
I'd like to hear what John thinks about those two different
me too.
possibilities. Where do you lean, if you lean one way or the other?
As far as which one my opinion is?
The salvation through constant forgiveness, or the permanent salvation. Where do you lean?
Well, I tend to think that God is above all merciful, and if you were in a scenario where you committed a sin and then got in a car wreck 10 seconds later and died, and you hadn't yet asked forgiveness for your sins for that day, I feel like it would be kind of unmerciful of God to send someone to hell under those circumstances. I also think that God is pretty much beyond all of our comprehension.
Yeah.
His methods and his motivations.
Truly.
So that's why this is a debate, and we can talk on it. And like Dad said, it's probably not something that we can actually prove either way because we don't know God's ways.
Yep. Okay.
So no, I'm not going to answer you specifically on that because I don't know.
I tend to think the same. I think that I think it's about what's in your heart in that sense. And if you are a person who has asked for God to be in you and to save you, and if it's something that is on your mind constantly, I doubt He's keeping track of every single little thing in that sense, where He's, like you said, you didn't have a chance, but you're the type of guy who sure would have asked for forgiveness. Well, I think He knows that too, And as far as us speaking out loud certain things, I think He's a little more powerful than that. I don't think it's necessary all the time.
So
Or that
he
He'll
knows-
penalize you for it.
He knows the intention of your heart,
Yeah.
basically, and that is one thing I definitely believe is that I don't think there's a method to it, as in necessarily. It doesn't have to be that you're asking specifically for forgiveness. He knows our hearts and what our intentions are. So I think that's the biggest thing He judges.
I'll throw this out there. It's something that me and you, Dad, have talked about before. Being as God is all powerful and He is out of space and time, and this is just a theory, but we don't know that when we die, that there's not more time for that still. We don't know that our last breath on earth is necessarily the final thing you do as a man in the sense of your forgiveness. It's possible that when you die, there's an extra 10 minutes there that God will come to you and say, do you ask forgiveness? Do you believe in me? So we don't know if that's how it works. We don't know if, as a mortal man, that you have to make that decision a second before you die. We're not sure if you may have a long journey to take after that, where you may have to do the same thing over again, because we just don't know about how that works.
Well, we don't know that.
No.
Okay, now, we're going to try to guide the discussion back to where, do we know that we are saved 100%, or do we believe that we are saved? And I'll define the words. Know something means 100%. Mathematically, 100.00 to infinity. Believe, a very strong belief, would be 99.99999, and let me put it this way that I thought of a few minutes ago. This is know right here, and this is believe. They're actually two different words. All right, I assert that you may not interchange these words to mean the same thing. Know is 100, and belief is 99.99. You can get them very close and very close and very close, but they may never touch. There's always going to be a space between believe and know. Therefore, do we know that we are saved by Jesus, or do we believe it? Now, believe can go from a weak belief to an extremely strong belief. That's what I'm asking.
I'll be your huckleberry. And I know that God is the one creator of the world, that in our neediness and in our sinful natures that He sent His perfect Son for us. I know that. I don't expect anybody else to know that, and the only reason I know that is because I started a journey of faith and belief, and I just don't hold that 0.1% for anything else to be true.
I'd like to hear, you kind of explained it already, but maybe a different way of explaining it. What is the basis for your knowledge? How do you know that?
For the miracles that I've experienced in my life, and for the peace that He's given me in the most unpeaceful, terrible times, and because He saved my daddy and He saved your daddy, and we had good lives so far because of that. And I just And I understand that I make myself vulnerable in saying that I make myself up to criticism for that, but I know it.
So would you say you've seen proof of that? That's why you say
At
you
best,
know
I
you've
would
seen
have to
proof.
say I have felt proof of that.
I'm just asking questions here. I don't know the answer.
I think that's a fair statement, Bessie, to say that you know it. I would venture also to say that I know it's true, for a lot of the same reasons. As far as in a court of law, in that sense, know and prove, probably not.
Right.
You know, a good lawyer would mop the floor with me.
Right, or
I don't have
scientist,
any-
a doctor, anybody could explain away all the things that have mattered to us, you know.
Or Steve.
I also,
Or Steve.
Yeah. Well, I also, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't have any tangible proof of it other than in my spirit. But,
I'll throw in my side of it. I understand where you and Bessie are coming from, but I think I might lean more to what Dad's point is. That to
That's
say,
me.
yeah, to say that I know it as a fact, I can't do that. But I think there's something in that too. This is my personal belief. If I choose to believe something, then it seems to give me a lot of power within myself to say that I've chosen something, and that may not be the right way to look at it, but I don't know that God is there for a fact. But I do believe it more than I believe most other things to be facts. And I'm a type of person who would probably say that nothing is really a fact because you can't really prove anything. So I choose to believe that God is real, and I have a whole lot of faith in it. But it is still, it's a choice I'm making. It's not something that I could say, this is just the way it is and this is fact. And I think that's important to me, you know, to make that choice on a maybe even a daily basis, to make that choice.
I'm gonna bring it back to this again. The word know and the word faith are two different words. No means 100%. It's a mathematical thing. It's 100%. That means there's no chance that it's not true. Faith is a belief. Now, if we knew something 100%, we would have no need for faith. Faith is when we don't know it, and yet we believe it. Faith is, okay, John, I saw you move. You go take it from there. That's where I want to frame it, right there.
I think what you're getting at is that to know something for 100% fact is just a state of being that requires no effort on our part and no emotion on our part, whereas for us to have faith in God, it requires for us to believe in Him, in a sense, to say, okay, I believe not only, God, that you're real, but that you are good and you love me. It's a choice you make, I guess is what I'm saying, which is something that God desires. He wants us to choose Him. If He came down from the sky right now, you know, riding in some kind of heavenly chariot with a million angels, everyone would believe in Him.
Yeah.
You know, immediately. And they
Everybody
would fall
would
down
know
and
He was
worship
real.
Him, you know.
Yeah.
But that isn't a relationship,
Yeah.
because that's what God desires from us, is a relationship with Him.
I love that. I love what you're saying.
Yeah, and that requires us to choose to believe in Him.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of a relationship, you have to go through the growing pains of saying, is this real? Is this something that could be beneficial? Is this something that I need in my world? But you can't continue into that, like with trust, with hope, with love, with those kind of things. At some point, you have to say, this is what I'm signed up for. Now let's move on to other things. I know that he is my savior. I know he is my bridegroom. I know he is my father. I know that he has got good plans for me. Now let's work on tithing. Now let's work on being missionaries to people. Now let's work on getting that foul mouth under control. Like, you know, that has to be, it's not hard for me anymore. It's not a struggle to believe that he's real. It's not a struggle to believe that he's coming back. None of that is challenging to me anymore. Not because it couldn't be, but because at some point that gets a little too heavy, and you got to let that go. You got to just trust and know. And then you move into the inner room. Then you go into the further depths of it. I know Bob's my husband. That makes me vulnerable. I know he'll treat me well. That's going to hurt if it comes back the other way. But the only way I get to move on into understanding him and treating him well and being treated well by him is that I can't keep playing if we're going to stay together or not. I can't keep messing around with the idea that maybe it's real, maybe it's not. I know it is. And who's going to be the fool if that's wrong? Me. I accept that burden in knowing that I've got a good husband, I've got a good God, you know.
I suppose I would have to reassert the faith word. I feel that you have faith in me as your husband. I don't feel that you know that about me, because I don't know that about me. No one knows what they'll do one day. No one knows if let's say I got in a car crash and hit my head really hard and I came back to you as a different person.
Yeah.
It could happen. I don't want it to, and I have faith that God will take care of me and keeps things like that from happening, but I don't know that. And I don't think that you could know that either. But
I
do
just
believe
choose
that you
to.
have faith in it.
And men are fickle, but God is never changing, you know,
Correct.
and he's in control of everything. So it does make me more of a fool to believe in you so much. It doesn't make me a fool to believe in God. And if it does, I take that plight on happily.
All right,
like
what
that.
we're going to do, Lucky, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Well, you was saying earlier, the belief in the faith. I've seen things in life, and I've seen other people, things happen in life to them, whether it's tragic or just an everyday life current event. They would have total belief in God, but then maybe something that person experienced was catastrophic to them. And then that's when faith would come in. You know, I've seen where people, they would feel like they was losing faith in God. They would say, God, why did this happen? Why did you let this happen? Now, before that event took place, you know, they had a 100% belief in him and they trusted in him. But then it falls back to faith again, like you were saying. There's a wide range there, like you said. It's this or it's the other.
That's a great
But
point.
a lot of people has to go back and dig deep with their personal relationship with God and gain that faith back so they can reach that level of belief again in a lot of cases in life experiences.
And the word that you just used was what? Starts with a B?
Believe.
Okay. All right, let's do this, and we're going to try to keep it short because we know we'll never get tired of this kind of discussion. I'm going to ask first, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands. Is there a difference between the word know and the word faith? Show of hands.
Is there a difference?
Yes. Yes means there's a difference. Everybody's agreed to that. Okay, now, the next question, and this is going to be the end of it right here. Now, if you guys out there watching this like this little presentation here and the way we're doing this is almost kind of like a family church, really, where nobody's the leader and says how it's got to be. This is everybody's going to say what they think, and everybody's going to respect what the other person thinks without trying to ridicule them or whatever. If you like this, let us know on the comments. Next question. Is it possible to know 100% that we are saved by Jesus? Is it possible to know it as opposed to just believe it. Remember, we've already admitted that the two words are not the same. If you think you can know it 100%, please raise your hand now. I like that.
I think I would agree with that too.
I like that very much. And let me tell you why I agree with that. You know, my position is you can't know anything. So then, therefore, we can't know whether we know. Okay? So that's in there. All right. And anybody else, we're going to cut it because we know long ones people don't stay with it. Let me know if you like what we're doing here. Okay. All right. This is Gardner Israel signing off.